What's going on YouTube? Thanks for tuning into the channel. Welcome to Oh So Simplified, coming to you with the video here about how to trust the process in life. Like, comment, subscribe, dislike, any feedback will do. Let's hop into this one. So jumping into this, how do you trust the process in life? As always, these are coming directly from things that I'm experiencing in life, and definitely during this period of time, just to timestamp it, this is like the end of 2024. We've just entered the fourth quarter. And obviously over the past 4-ish years, tons of things have happened from the standpoint of like global economics, specifically here in America, then bringing it down individually to me. Obviously a lot of things have changed. A lot of things have happened in this short span of time that may lead people into these particular spaces where you're a little confused. Things you've done seem like they're not necessarily working. But I would urge you, and what the whole purpose of this video is to trust the process, that things always do work out in their due time. And a lot of times the way things are viewed, it's like something that Steve Jobs said: you can only really connect the dots looking back. It's hard to really put into place the value of any particular circumstance until you see how it plays out all the way in the end. And since we're not in the end, it's hard to see how it plays out, and it's easy to kind of get down on yourself. So jumping into this first part is really, one, the difference between patience and laziness. So when people say trust the process, do want to first off just jump in there with, that doesn't mean do nothing. One, I don't really think you could actually do nothing. Doing quote unquote nothing is still doing something, where it's like keeping yourself into a particular space. But I digress. You know, building a house, or when I had to fix up all the different rooms in the house, when I talk about, you know, when everything was demoed in the house that I purchased, there is a certain amount of hours it takes to hang up sheetrock. There's a certain amount of hours and time it takes to mud something, wait for it to dry. When you paint, wait for it to dry. When you sand, you know, there's a certain amount of time certain things take. Now, patience is understanding it's 2 weeks worth of work, putting in those 2 weeks worth of work, but not feeling like after 1 week worth of work that all of the results should be there. Now, laziness is just sitting there for 2 weeks expecting it to be done. Now, being lazy is never going to actually amount to anything. But being patient and doing things day by day in a systematic fashion will lead to stuff. Now, it's a lot easier when you have more of a defined project where you can see the particular ending point. But when you're thinking about things like starting a business, it could be, you know, finding, you know, a dream job or something, or achieving specific goals. It could be in a sport or something like that. It could really be in anything. When the finish line, the objectives themselves are a little bit more out of your control, and where the ending point would be and the speed at which all things happen is more variable, or, you know, affected by outside circumstances, it makes it a lot harder to have that patience and that faith that things are moving in a particular direction, that the choices and actions that you're making today are actually leading you to that end result that you're looking for. Now, in this particular example, I would say having patience, having the ability to trust the fact that you are putting in work and that things are leading to something, it sounds very simple and almost pie in the sky, but I do think it's a very important piece, because that is what's going to keep you going. Trusting in the fact that deep down you do have an inner guidance that's kind of telling you things that are aligned with what you're looking to do. And the fact that you're responding to that and putting in actions, regardless of what the result may be, having the faith in the fact that the process is being worked out on your behalf. Now, this could be, and the reason I say this, having this patience is important, is because there can be, which is the second part, many quote unquote setbacks. There could be many obstacles or different things that come into your way that make all the efforts you've made seem futile. Now, this easy way to look at this could be something like I've been working in sales for almost the better part of a decade at this point. Um, Knocking on doors. Generally, it would take me about an hour to get an actual lead when I was like door to door knocking, or if I'm cold calling, I would say it's anywhere from like, can be anywhere from like 10 to 30 calls, depending on the list that I'm using, that you get somebody to really answer, and probably 30 plus calls for somebody to really set a meeting with just an average list. Now, if I were to set the meeting on call number 30, does that mean all the calls previously were for nothing? Now, in some sort of world, you can kind of say it was for nothing, but in the real world that I live in, it wasn't for nothing, because if I didn't make those other calls, I wouldn't have gotten to that 30th call. Something was forcing me to call those people. Also, that person might not have been free in the day if I were to call that person first in the list. So all of those calls have added up to the result of booking the meeting, not just the one call that actually booked the meeting. So all that's to say, that's kind of my view on patience. And if you've listened to any of my videos before, you can see how I just kind of tie certain things together, that I do think there are these forces that are trying to get you towards whatever you ultimately desire. So the idea of placing that 30th call in a time when you can call them, and specifically being in sales, there's so many specific moments that I can talk to that it's like, I don't know why I ended up calling them at this specific time, but caught them at the perfect time. Or they called me back at the perfect time, or things were just in perfect timing. And I don't know what's really controlling that. In the sales world, we have this phrase, a lot of times people use sales gods, but it's just these forces that sometimes make things happen. And I think you can notice this in many other pieces of life, but it's just having patience that the actions you're doing, even if they're not showing you any specific results now, it's all part and parcel of leading to the positive result later. And this could even be if you're going through a particular, like, even interview process. I know those can be very grueling in terms of doing multiple rounds, things like that. You get to the final round, you don't get the job. But that is part of you getting the next job that you're looking for. You go through all the rounds in the next job and you get it. Maybe there's something you learned, and maybe it's just literally the timing, the momentum, your headspace, because you had that previous experience that leads to this other experience. So I don't want to get too deep into that, but that's the view on patience, that take action while you can, even if you don't feel like things are working, and just trust that it just takes time to build a certain thing. And when you have undefined variables or boundaries on the marker in terms of what makes your fucking idea fully realized, understand that it's going to be an undefined amount of time of you working before you see it, but it's all working towards that particular goal. Now, the second part is going to be talking specifically about the setbacks, obstacles, and then redirection. So what this is that you have a particular goal, you have a direction or aim, and you are working towards it, but something comes up that makes you feel as if you're taking multiple steps back. Feels like it's an obstacle you need to get over or get around, or it feels like it's actually trying to tell you to go to a different course. Now, I think this is all, once again, part and parcel of creating something, that there is a particular amount of time, but then a lot of the times the way things are in our head and the way they come out into the world are always going to be somewhat different, because our view of reality is somewhat distorted, because we are egocentric beings. We're always thinking about ourselves, and the world is not. So when we do put our visions out into the world, they always kind of take over almost a life of their own. Even when people have created these AI engines, the AI engines even hallucinate in a way that the actual creator can't fully understand. But I digress on that. When you do reach some of these setbacks or obstacles, I think there are opportunities for two things. One, for you to see if it's a chance for you to double down on something. And this is really just a test to see how committed you are to the particular endeavor or direction that you've chosen on, and how you are going to either set yourself up for the comeback, as the saying has to say, or you're going to get around the particular obstacle. Now, the other one would be, and this is kind of taking a little bit of information from another book that I like a lot. Steven Pressfield, he has a book called Turning Pro, and he talks about these shadow careers, which is basically you have a dream or something you want to do. You want to be a writer, write screenplays and things like that, and of that sort. But then you work, as an accountant for your career, and you're great as an accountant. But deep down, you always have this tugging pain about the fact that you want to do this writing thing. I do think that somehow, and this is where I do think there's this force that does try to make things happen, and I think there's a force within you that tries to hold you back, which Stephen Pressfield would call that force resistance. I don't know what you call this other force that I'm talking about. That somehow life will keep reminding you of the thing that you're not putting attention to, that you need to put attention to. So, using that same example, you could be an accountant, get to your 40s, very successful in your career, but for some reason, things keep happening that is making that particular career not look as fruitful. It could be changes in leadership. It could be, you get ill with an illness. It could be whatever. But there's these weird setbacks and obstacles that keep somehow pulling you back to writing your screenplay. Maybe relationships aren't working. I know for me, and I would say specifically with this whole YouTube thing, it's weird how things happen that keep bringing me back to this, because it's like when I have nothing else, I'm like, what would you do if you had all the money in the world and you didn't have these obligations? Well, I would like to do this all day and work out all day and then just document that and put that online and then sell courses based on that and create like a brand, like I see a ton of people that are a lot dumber than me do. That's what I want to do. And it's like that redirection, that setback, obstacle, it's actually a way of trying to almost splash water in your face and remind you. It's like your body's way of repositioning you into the path that you need to go on. Now, the redirection piece would be that as you get older, you get more experience. And I think that everybody is gaining experience. I think some people feel like they wasted their life, but even in that waste of life, there had to be something that you gained from it. At least I would hope. And speaking a little bit more candid about some of the things I have under works, I definitely want to create an MMA. Well, I've already created it. I just need to, finish editing the video to get it up. And a couple other things that are based on genres that when I created this whole YouTube channel, I wasn't actually engaging in. Like, I didn't do MMA. I wrestled, had like 5 years prior, but I didn't do mixed martial arts. I didn't compete in any, mixed martial art competition or jiu-jitsu competition. But now that I have gained that experience, it's become a skill set that I can marry to another skill set that I've been just kind of working on in the shadows that can now pair together to be something big. This was never an intent in terms of why I joined martial arts or why I joined YouTube to bring these together, but the ability is there because just following my life, things come together, and that can be a redirection that I wasn't anticipating or forcing, but just from doing the work, just following the avenue of the guidance system that is deep within me, it's leading to things being able to be paired up. Even in my career of sales, I've been selling things online for how long? Now I have an actual skill I can use in my entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial or freelancing venture that I'm hopefully looking to get off the ground and become something fully sustainable for myself. But all of these things did not come up as a particular plan. Some of these were actually kind of setbacks. Like at the time I got to my career, the only reason why I really made that jump was because I was dating the bartender or talking to her. We weren't really like official or anything, but it definitely didn't work out, and working with her was definitely not something that was going to work out either. So I figured I needed to make a move, and I didn't want to start at the bottom of another bar trying to work my way up to get bartending experience I was like, why don't I use my degree? Got me to a career that's doing very well. Making a lot of these videos, I've had a billion setbacks. I have not gotten popular really to this point. So everything that I'm adding when I do get to that state where I am gaining a real viewership and real audience, all of the tools and tactics that I'm putting into that are all only developed because I kept hitting setbacks, because I kept hitting obstacles of people aren't watching my stuff, that I keep thinking, how do I niche down? How do I make this more targeted? How do I do this like that? That these setbacks, obstacles, redirections, roadblocks are all either building your skill or showing you where you need to actually put more time and develop the skills, because it's either something that's going to feed your soul, as I had a video earlier, or it's something that's telling you that this is the skill set you need to build. That's the next thing, that when you have that skill set, you can marry it together. That's going to ultimately fit that vision you had earlier, where you can have basically a vision that isn't, to use a portrait. It's not, all the borders aren't drawn in, all the colors aren't filled in. And over time, your work towards it can fill in those colors, those borders, to ultimately get you where you need to be. The last one is a phrase you'll hear me say over and over again. It's from Robert Greene that I really just think is the truth, and it's the phrase that serendipity is a function of the openness of your mind. So all of the things that I've said are kind of summing up videos I've had before, like success is not a straight line. You can only connect the dots looking backwards, things of that sort. And with that being said, putting the work in day out, having a vision, and just having the faith and patience that you are working towards that vision when you honestly know you are. Because obviously people know when they're wasting time, but people know when they're working on things that might not be being noticed by others, might not be being noticed by the people you want to notice it. It might not be being noticed by anybody but yourself, but you know that you're doing the work. I think there is something out there that is recognizing that. Now, that could be a force within you. You might believe in a sky daddy. It's up to you what your beliefs are. I don't believe in a sky daddy. I keep saying that it's more of a force that's within you. That's the same force that created everything else. Because if you go back far enough, we all had to have come from some sort of singular point. But I digress on that. But it's all these things that are happening in your life are reaching the culmination of something. And you can believe that all of these things are completely unintertwined, but what is the benefit of that? And that's why I say it's the function of the openness of your mind. If you're able to see how that experience connects to this experience, and this experience connects to that experience, and really, actually this all happened in perfect unison for me to do what I ultimately wanted to do, and you have this ability, any situation, to pull all these things together and see how it's actually exactly what you want. That's true, if you think about like alchemy, and when people talk about turning, water into wine or shit into sugar, like base metals into gold, that is like literal mental alchemy. If you can take setbacks, obstacles, things that aren't happening, things that you're working towards that you're not sure are going to happen, and keep convincing yourself that I'm in that perfect place, you're going to be in the headspace to make the best impact, to make the most effective decisions and effective progress to whatever that is. And then ultimately, you'll always have the openness to figure out how this actually worked for you, no matter where it goes, no matter if there's an obstacle, a setback, a redirection, a new path, you'll always have the resources to make that happen. And that's why I really think that, things happen for a reason, but you have to have the openness and the mental fluidity to even observe things as that. So that's really it for this one. Just wanted to come with another video here really quickly. If you like the content, like, comment, subscribe. You didn't like it, dislike, any feedback will do. And as always, until next time, peace.